The meeting. You are very welcome to attend and observe proceedings. However, I request politely that you do not disrupt this meeting. Members, it is with great sadness that I have to formally report the death of former councillor John Wilkinson. John represented the DNS ward of Durham City Council between 2007 and 2009. and the DNS Valley Ward on Durham County Council between 2008 and 2013. John was also Mayor of Durham in 2012 to 2013. Can I ask all members to stand for a moment as we remember John? Thank you. Item 1, minutes. Can I have a mover?
Chair, can I move the minutes?
And a seconder?
Second the minutes, Chair.
Are the minutes agreed, please?
I think Councillor Behari wanted to come in.
Councillor who?
Behari.
Bahari.
Thank you, Chair. My name isn't on the list for members present on the minutes. It was missed off last month. I mentioned it to Helen, but it's not on again this month.
Yeah, I think we've got a system glitch,
Right,
Councillor
okay.
Behari, but we'll make sure you're included.
Right, thank you.
Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member have a declaration of interest in relation to any of the items of business on the agenda? Item 3, the Chair's announcements. Since the last council meeting, I have attended several events, including the following. An honorary freedom ceremony on the 27th of September 2022, which admitted Miss Megan Bothwick as an honorary free woman of the City of Durham in recognition of her services to women's football in the City of Durham. On the 13th of October, I hosted a lunch for retired co-optees for scrutiny committee who, between the three of them, had given 24 years service in the co-optee role. Colourful artworks created by young adults who need additional support have gone on show as part of a free exhibition that we can and we will, by the Wider World project, will be displayed at the Gala Gallery in Durham City until Friday the 30th of December. The exhibition follows months of art workshops led by North East artist Dawn Felicia Knox, which has been held at Gala Durham, Wharton Park and Belmont Community Centre since May. The project has been funded by Durham County Councils. Locations throughout County Durham have been celebrating after winning honours in the Royal Horticultural Society Northumbrian Bloom competition. Durham City won gold in the small city category. Sedgefield won gold in the small towns category. Stanley claimed the silver gilt to win the large town section, with Chesley Street taking silver in the same category. Seaham took a gold in the coastal resort group. Belmont was awarded silver for urban community. Gilesgate Primary School took home the Best Schools honour. Stanley Park Care Home scooped Best Care Home. Durham BID won Best Town Central Retail Area. Seaham Town Park and Wharton Park were both awarded gold in the Best Park section. Grade 2 listed Sedgefield Hall in Sedgefield took gold in the Best Grounds, a hospital, University of Public Building category, with Belmont Allotments won Best Allotments. The Just for Women Centre in Stanley, meanwhile, won Best Commercial Premises Small. Finally, I'm pleased to report that Durham County Council won the Best Innovation or Demand Management Initiative Award at the Association for Public Service Excellence Awards for its mobile repairs system app, which has been developed in-house initially for our building repairs and maintenance teams. The Council was also a finalist in the categories of Best Climate Action and Decarbonisation Initiative, Best Commercialisation and Entrepreneurship Initiative, Best Efficiency and Transformation Initiative, Best Service Team Facilities Management and Building Cleaning Service, Best Service Team Housing Construction and Building Service, and overall Council of the Year in Service Delivery. I am sure Council will join me in congratulating all staff involved in achieving of these awards. Number 4, Leader's Report. Can I invite the Leader of the Council to present her report, please?
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. After the summer recess and the pause in some of our work following the death of Her Majesty the Queen last month, we are now facing a particularly busy time. As I'm sure you'll all be aware, we are currently in discussions with the LA6 authorities and the government regarding a potential devolution deal. The Secretary of State asked us to advise him by Friday the 14th of October of whether we wish to join the LA6 devolution arrangements. And I can confirm that we have agreed in principle that we would like to work with the LA6 authorities to create a regional deal. This is an in-principle decision and is subject to further ongoing discussions with our regional colleagues in the government. Any deal would also be subject to the consideration by Cabinet prior to consultation. Our primary aim is and always is to ensure the best possible deal for the people of County Durham, and that this is what we will be working to achieve during these conversations. As I've said, this is a particularly busy time for us, and on Friday we submitted a bid to the government to create 2 investment zones within the county. Our bid puts forward Akeley Heads and Net Park as potential sites. Both have a clear focus on innovation and the creation of high-value jobs. Becoming an investment zone would help secure additional private sector investment and create supply chain opportunities for other businesses in the county. We'll keep our fingers crossed for good news later this year on our status. Finally, we know that many residents across the county are feeling the impact of rising fuel prices and the cost of living crisis. This month we've launched our Warm Spaces scheme, which will provide a network of safe and trusted places where people can go to keep warm during the colder weather. As well as providing warm spaces within some of our own buildings, we are also working with County Durham Community Foundation to provide financial and practical support to voluntary and community groups to provide venues. This is just one example of a wide range of support we provide, including help to pay heating and energy bills, our welfare assistance scheme and debt advice. You will hear later that we're also proposing to extend our council tax reduction scheme for a further year. This scheme provides a 100% discount on council tax payments to all financially vulnerable households. Details of all these initiatives are available on our website, and if you'd like to share that link with anyone who may need support. Thank you.
Do any members have questions on the report? Councillor Marshall?
Thanks, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, can the Leader of the Council please explain to the councillors today why she's changed her mind on her approach to devolution?
Excuse me, Councillor Marshall, it's only one question, please.
Yeah, OK, then it's one question. So, can she explain why she's changed her mind on devolution and proposing to take a rural county into a city-focused regional deal, rejecting the government's offer from a year ago to put County Durham's interests first in agreeing a single county deal? And will she commit to call an extraordinary council meeting in November so that all councillors across the county can debate and vote on our preferred position before she walks County Durham into a secret deal against the will of our communities and without a political mandate from this council, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Marshall for the question. There's no secret deal. There's a difference between secrecy and confidentiality, and at the moment you should know that that's what exists when you're working with deals like this. There is no change of mind. We were offered, within the white paper, there is an option of a county deal, and I've always said that we would look at what is best for County Durham. You were invited to a meeting last week where we could have given you those details, and with regards to meeting with members, we are following the protocol and the process that is set down by government on all devolution deals and doing exactly what every other local authority is doing with regards to that.
Yeah, I didn't get a full answer to the question because I requested a special meeting in November so all members of the council can debate this properly and openly and transparently.
Have you got any further to add?
Well, I thought I had answered that in that we're following the process that's set out. There is a process for this, and the process is that a Cabinet report will come, and you're more than welcome to attend Cabinet, although I appreciate it's something that you haven't done for quite some number of months.
Councillor Howie?
Good morning. I just want to ask the leader a question. Is it true that if we go in for this devolution deal with the LA6, that we'll probably get a lot more money than we would if we stay as just the single voted mayor in?
Whilst we talk about confidential, Councillor Marshall, the confidentiality relates to the detail. A simple answer to that is at this moment we believe yes.
Councillor Rob Crute, please.
Thank you, Chair. To question related to the leader's report, and since the coalition have decided to go into a deal on principle, could I ask for guidance from the head of legal on how we can call an extraordinary meeting of the council to discuss in principle the options open to this council in going ahead in a devolution deal? I think the constitution at the moment is a little bit ambiguous. I believe the head of legal can call a meeting, but there's also reference to the council by resolution calling an extraordinary meeting, but there's also the option for the chair of the council to call a meeting via the head of legal. Could I take some guidance on that, please? Because I do think we need to debate this, not just for members in this hall, but on behalf of the people we represent.
Okay, just to pick up on a procedural point, this is leaders' questions, there's no debate. In answer to the question, you're correct. I can call an extraordinary meeting. The chair can call an extraordinary meeting. A resolution of council can call an extraordinary meeting. And there's provision for any 5 members to call an extraordinary meeting. But it is perhaps worth reiterating that in order to enter into a devolution process and to establish a combined authority, there is a statutory process to be followed. And there will be decision-making points at various stages of that statutory process. Councillor Hopwood's referred to some of that. And, you know, there is a process to be followed which will allow for member consideration. But as I say, this is questions, not debate. The issue of extraordinary meeting needs to be dealt with outside of this forum.
Councillor Fraser-Tinsley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification on the leader's report there. The leader referred to the fact that consultation with regional partners and government is ongoing. Can I ask if that consultation with regional partners includes the 520,000 people who live in County Durham who may have an interest in this, one of the biggest decisions that will be made in County Durham? Now, she also referred to, in a statement there, the fact that this is the process that's been followed across the country with other authorities. I'd just like
Excuse
to ask, sorry,
excuse me, it's questions, not debate.
It is a question. It's about who's the consultation been with.
But you're doing a speech on it as well. Could you take it back to a question, please?
And I would like just to continue and state, in asking the question if that consultation is with the people of County Durham, whether or not the leader has taken into consideration the fact that in 2004 the people of the North East were asked if they would like to enter into a regional assembly, and at that point 77% of them said no. So if the leader could actually just clarify those points on what consultation has occurred with the people of County Durham. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Chair. Now we've got to the question. If you'd heard, I said regional colleagues and government, so it's with the local authorities. There will be consultation that will take place, and the regional, with regard to the regional assembly, it's quite a different scenario to this. If you want to read the white paper, you would see that devolved powers is just that. It's a devolved powers. It has nothing to do whatsoever with what we do in this chamber.
Councillor Olwen-Gunn, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question on the Leader's report is, does the Leader think that it's in the interest of this Council's democracy to actually inform adjacent local authority leaders and not inform the leader of the Labour group with 55 members representing thousands of residents across this county, and those residents, for those residents not to be informed about the discussions even, or for this to have been raised earlier in this chamber as to what is actually going on for the people of County Durham. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Gunn, for the question. The leader of your group was invited to a meeting. He has been invited to meetings previously about this. If you don't come, I can't help you with regards to that.
It's after you responded to government.
Councillor McKeon.
Thank you, Chair. The regional proposal will put us into a combined authority with the Tyne and Wear authorities that have...
Excuse me, Councillor. It's not a speech time, it's a question time.
No, this is I'm giving context to the question very briefly, Chair. Those authorities have responsibility for the Tyne and Wear Metro, which is in quite serious financial difficulty, I believe, from what I've read in the Northern Echo. I'm just concerned about any money that goes into that pot being not spent in County Durham but spent on a metro system we don't have any involvement with, and I just wondered if the leader of the council will be able to give an assurance that County Durham won't lose out from any funding on the basis of a metro we don't have any authority over.
I can confirm that as things stand at the moment with the Joint Transport Committee, that County Durham and Northumberland have no contributions whatsoever to the Metro. I don't see that that would change. An LA7 deal would also include a significant area that is Northumberland, that is predominantly rural, and Gateshead, whilst it is a metropolitan city, has an awful lot of rural area as well. And all I would say is don't always believe everything you read in the paper.
Councillor Cathy Hunt.
She's deregistered.
Oh, sorry, you've deregistered, sorry.
It's okay, Chair. I was just going to say that I thought the use of mobile phones, we were asked to switch them off.
Mobile phones are switched to silent. Councillor Charlie Kay, please.
Thank you, Chair. This isn't a question about technology, it's a direct question to the leader. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not entirely sure, which is why I'm asking this question, there's £147 million on the table at the moment for transport in County Durham. And a good element of that will go towards cycling, walking and other transport infrastructures. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, this money will be lost if we go into a regional deal with the LA6. Is that true or is that false? And by the way, don't Boris Johnson me like you did the last answer.
It's false.
Point of order, Chair.
Please, councillors, treat each one with respect, please.
Point of order.
Councillor Hood.
Thank you, Chair. We've sort of ruled this a few times now that you've quite politely asked that to make sure that it's questions, but sitting here, and I understand at the front it can be a little bit difficult, but when the leader's tried to speak, over the last few conversations, she's had 3 people speaking at her when she's trying to speak. She's had people speaking over her. She's now got fingers pointing at her. It's obviously a very... And talking over me again, this is just what we get. Can we just have a little bit more order and decorum? I understand that passions are difficult, but we have now a we now have a continuous...
Excuse me, please.
Trying to speak and still speaking over. They can keep standing on my point
Excuse
as long as
me,
they want
or I
to.
will ask for unorderly councillors to leave, please.
May I finish, please, Chair?
Yes.
As I was saying, we'll just keep going here, Chair. As when people are speaking, if we can have a little bit more decorum and actually listen to each other, instead of speaking over and shouting, to stand on my point, I've had about 6 or 7 examples of that when I've just been trying to speak for the first time. So if we can just have a little bit more order and decorum and stick to the rules that are in procedure. Thank you, Chair.
I'm only asking for both sides to show respect, please. Thank you. Councillor Hovels.
Anybody speaking to the chair in this chamber, you always get on your feet, and I would hope people do get on the feet and not to shout and wave their hands from the front row.
Chair,
Thank
points
you,
of order
Chair.
are not opportunities to debate. I think the point's been made. Can we move on, please?
Right.
There's nobody else registered to speak.
Nobody else is registered to speak, so we'll move on to question 5. One question has been received for today's meeting. The question is from Mr. Moore, is being displayed on the screen. Mr. Moore is unable to attend the meeting, therefore a written response will be provided to him following the meeting. A copy of the response will also be posted on Council's website. Item number 6, petitions. No petitions have been received for today's meeting. Number 7, report from the Cabinet. Can I ask the Leader of the Council to present the report?
Chair, present the report as written.
No questions have been received in respect of the report. Can I ask the Council to note the report? Item 8, Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme. Can I ask the Corporate Director of Resources to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. The National Council Tax Benefit Scheme was abolished on the 31st of March 2013 and replaced with a requirement for individual local authorities to develop and adopt their own local council tax reduction schemes. This report sets out proposals for the local council tax reduction scheme that will apply in 2023-24 in County Durham. Whilst pensioners, who now account for around 38% of the current caseload, must be fully protected under any local scheme, the Council is free to determine locally any cap we wish to place on working age claimants. Any changes to the scheme from year to year must be subject to public consultation and stakeholder consultation. When the local schemes were introduced, the government could grant funding to local authorities at that time and effectively passed all risk from increased incidence of claims to local government. Many authorities sought to offset that grant loss or subsequent reductions in funding by capping the maximum amount of support available to working age claimants. For 2013-14, the first year of the new arrangements, the Council took the decision to implement a local scheme which mirrored the entitlement afforded to all claimants that existed under the previous National Council Tax Benefit Scheme, and in each year since we've agreed to extend that protection. Durham County Council is the only council in the North East and one of only a handful of councils nationally to continue to provide this level of protection, with around 80% of the current 34,000 working age claimants receiving 100% support and having no council tax bill to pay. In July, the Cabinet considered an update to our MTFP 13 projections and also considered whether to submit proposals to full council to change the local council tax reduction scheme next year. The recommendation of Cabinet was to continue with the existing scheme for at least a further year, and this report seeks to do just that. In arriving at that decision, Cabinet were mindful of the cost of recovery and potential impact on collection rates, but also significantly both the cumulative impacts of the government's welfare reform agenda and the current cost of living pressures on households across the county, which has a much bigger impact on our most financially disadvantaged households. Members will also note that within the report there is a continued commitment to passing on to town and parish councils a share of the local council tax reduction scheme grant next year. The recommendations are for Council to agree to the extension of the existing scheme for the reasons outlined in detail in the report, and in doing so commit to undertaking a further review next year to inform options for 2024-25. The recommendation, Chair, is set out at paragraph 12 to the report.
Can I have a mover, please?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the report and recommendations. The report sets out the details of the review of the local council tax reduction scheme for 23-24, where, as has been said, the Cabinet's recommendation is that once again the scheme remains unchanged. In agreeing these proposals, we will remain the only council in the North East to have a scheme that continues to provide support equal to that which was available under the old council tax benefit scheme. And I think that we should be proud as a council we continue to support what is such an important benefit for people across this county. The scheme targets support on those that need it most, which is surely a sound principle at all levels of government. We must, however, recognise that this decision comes at a cost in terms of lost council tax revenue compared with virtually every other council in the country, but clearly it is the right decision for next year, particularly in the light of the squeeze on household income and budgets at this time. As always, we will need to review this position in a year's time and continue to reflect carefully on the administrative burden being created through multiple changes in circumstances for those households on universal credit. With that, Chair, I support the recommendations as set out in the report at paragraph 12 and would call on all members to agree to retaining the scheme next year.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the Corporate Director of Resources, all the relevant council officers, and to the Finance Portfolio Holder, Councillor Richard Bell, for this report, and to the staff who administer the scheme and who have worked tirelessly to deal with the increase in applications during the last year. All members, past and present, can be proud that this council has been able to retain a local council tax reduction scheme initiated by the previous administration that retains support to vulnerable and disadvantaged households equal to that which was available under the old council tax benefit scheme. As has been previously outlined, we are only one of a handful of councils across the country and the only authority in the North East continuing to retain a local council tax reduction scheme at the sale level, as was the case under the former national council tax benefit system. The level of protection afforded to working age claimants, many of which are in work but suffering from low wages and all of whom will be facing a squeeze on household incomes as a result of high inflation, increases in interest rates, the cost of living rise, and this has been an absolute godsend. Whilst this obviously comes at a cost of foregone council tax revenues, now is most certainly not the time to consider making changes to our scheme. And I call on all members on all sides to agree the proposals as set out in the report, so I formally second Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Surtees.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm really pleased and very, very proud of this scheme. Like Councillor Shields said, it was a Labour-introduced initiative under the previous administration, which is us. And I'm very pleased that this has been retained. It's an excellent Labour initiative. There's lots of people out there that need help and support. And in the brink of the cost of living crisis, I'll be fully supporting it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Charlie Kay. Sorry.
Yeah, go on, read that
registered to speak but has since left the room?
Councillor Varty's put a hand up.
Councillor Varty?
Good morning. I apologise for the voice. I'm very proud to stand here on behalf of my WASPI ladies and on my other role as retired officer for my union. I have worked with those before I became a member in this illustrious place, and I've always been able to push this to give them an extra little bit of money that they can go for. And I thank you for helping to keep this running for this Labour initiative. I'm sorry, my voice is getting worse. So thank you for that, and thank you for all the people it's helped over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie Kay has come back in. Are you registered to speak, Charlie?
Chair, I think something's gone wrong with me doodah, because... well, Mrs. Yeah. Carry on, council. I know. Lighten the mood anyway. When the legal officer cut the debate on the last item, I just left the queue. It's joined me itself. I don't understand why. If you want me to talk, of course, quite happy.
Thank you. There's nobody else registered to speak. Does the council agree the recommendations in this report, please? Item number 9, report of the Audit Committee for the period of September 2021 to August 2022. Can I invite Councillor Alec Watson, Chair of the Audit Committee, to present his report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can. It is considered good practice for the Audit Committee to report on its work to full Council on a yearly basis. As Chair of the Council's Audit Committee, I am pleased to present this update to Council today. This report covers the work of the Audit Committee during the period September 2021 to August 2022. Through careful consideration and challenge of a wide range of officer reports presented, I am pleased to report that the Audit Committee has fulfilled its role in gaining assurances as to the adequacy and effectiveness of the Council's governance, risk management framework and internal control environment. This report sets out details of the various meetings that have been held over the last 12 months and the issues that are being considered. And there are 3 key areas of the committee's work during that period that I would like to draw your attention to. The first area relates to the work of internal audit. The Audit Committee continues to promote and champion the work of internal audit across the organisation. As such, the committee agreed the internal audit strategy, charter and internal audit plan proposed by the Chief Internal Auditor and Corporate Fraud Manager, Tracy Henderson, who has been in post since 1st of February 2022. Updates are provided to the committee on a quarterly basis. I am satisfied that the committee provides the appropriate challenge to this process, with a number of officers attending the committee to provide explanations and answer questions across the year. Secondly, the external audit of the Council's Statement of Accounts. In July, the committee received a report from the Corporate Director of Resources, which presented the draft unaudited Statement of Accounts for the year ended 31st of March 2022, and the draft accounts were certified and provided to external audit within the statutory deadline. A progress report of the draft Statement of Accounts for the year ended 31st of March 2022 was subsequently presented to Audit Committee in September 2022. The final Statement of Accounts will be presented to Audit Committee on the 22nd of November meeting for review and approval in accordance with the statutory reporting timescales for the year. Finally, I would draw members' attention to the continuing good work of the Council's corporate fraud team. Protecting the public purse reports we have considered demonstrate across the Council the counter-fraud activity that has been completed in order to acknowledge, prevent and pursue fraud under the Council's counter-fraud and corruption strategy. We have acknowledged fraud as a strategic risk and that prevention is indeed better than cure. To give some context, the corporate fraud team in 21-22 completed 572 investigations over a wide range of areas, including the emerging COVID-19 fraud and scams, blue badge abuse and council tax claims, to name a few. In addition to investigating concerns, the fraud team also utilised a range of counter-fraud initiatives to protect the council and the community we serve, using its fraud communication strategy and awareness campaign. The council has an excellent local and national profile for their work in this area. We have developed strong partnerships with other public sector organisations which continue to enhance the reputation that this council has. In summary, Madam Chair Lady, whilst the report is largely for information, I would note that I consider the effectiveness of the Audit Committee to be excellent. We continue to improve, and I'm happy to move the recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions on the report, please? Richard Bell.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank Councillor Watson for his report and pay tribute to the work of the Audit Committee over the last year. The scope and extent of the work considered is a testament to all members involved, and I would also like to thank the officers who furnished the committee with the many detailed reports it considers, which allows it to provide robust overview and assurance of our corporate and financial governance arrangements and of our risk management and internal control frameworks. This is an essential and important area of work. It gives us all the confidence that the Council is making good decisions based on good information, underpinned by effective internal controls and appropriate risk mitigation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Nobody requested to speak. Does the Council note the report? Item number 10, appointment of Chair of the Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can I please have nominations for the position of Chair of the Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Committee? Please note nominations will be voted on without debate.
Chair, can I nominate Councillor Anne Reid, please?
Thank you.
Just stand up here, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Anne Reid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second, Chair.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Samantha Townsend.
Chair,
Please.
I'd like to second that.
Ask if there's any other nominations.
Any other nominations, please? So now do I hand it over to you? Hand over to Helen.
Thank you, Chair. So we have two nominations, so we will put it to the vote. If you just give us a couple of minutes to load the vote. Councillor Anne Reid was nominated first, so her name will appear first, and Councillor Samantha Townsend will be on number 2. So if you're voting in favour of Councillor Reid, it's 1, Samantha Townsend 2, 3 to abstain. If you press the wrong button, pressing the right button will correct it. If you just wait till we've opened the vote before you cast your vote, please.
Yes, Councillor Marshall.
Sorry, Chair, my doodah wasn't working either. Could I formally request a name vote on this item, please?
You need the support of 10 councillors.
Thank you.
The way in which people vote will be recorded in the minutes. That's the vote open.
The vote is closing. Thank you. Councillor Anne Reid, 56. Councillor Samantha Townsend, 52. Abstentions, 1. Councillor Reid is elected as Chair of Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Thank you. Item 11, motions on notice.
Chair, I would like to move a motion without notice. Please, a motion without notice to extend the time allowed for motions under item 11 beyond the 30 minutes allowed, but subject to the overall time limit for the meeting of 2.5 hours. Thank you.
Could I have a seconder, please?
Chair, I second that.
Thank you. Can it be agreed? There are 4 motions to be considered. The motion on the agenda for Councillor Harley has been withdrawn. The motions will be dealt with in order in which they were received and detailed on the agenda. Motion from Councillor Cathy Hunt, please.
Thank you,
Helen
Chair.
will read. Helen will read the procedures.
Apologies, Councillor Hunt. So the usual rules of debate apply. Movers of motions have 5 minutes to speak. Seconders and other speakers have 3 minutes. Members may only speak once on a motion other than the mover, who has a 3-minute right of reply. If an amendment is moved and seconded, the debate moves on to that amendment. Only one amendment can be moved at a time. No further amendments may be moved until the amendment under discussion has been disposed of. Each member can speak once on the amendment, except the mover of the original motion. They have a right of reply before the amendment is put to the vote, but may not otherwise speak on it. If, following the vote, an amendment is carried, it becomes a substantive motion. If the amendment falls, the debate goes back to the original motion. And just to note, if there are any amendments, we will display them on screen as usual, but we will also circulate them via email to all members, so you'll have access to them on your devices as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cathy Hunt, can you move your motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. Council notes the problems caused in the communities by the misuse of nitrous oxide and calls upon the Advisory Council on the misuse of drugs to respond to the Home Secretary's request to review the harm caused by nitrous oxide and better understand whether further restrictions on the drug is needed. Making the sale of nitrous oxide restricted through such things as the need for age verification. Also empowering the police and other stakeholders to deal with the antisocial issues caused by the substance misuse in County Durham, including nitrous oxide. I move the motion as printed and speak to it as follows. On the 3rd of September 2021, the Home Secretary wrote to Professor Bowden-Jones, Chairman of the Advisory Council of the Misuse of Drugs, noting that the abuse of nitrous oxide has been a source of concern for some time. While it has legitimate uses, such as medicine, dentistry and propellant for whipped cream canisters, it is also an offence under the Psychoactive Substances Act 2016 to supply nitrous oxide if a person knows or is reckless as to whether it should be used as a psychoactive effect. And asking that in light of the prevalence of the abuse of nitrous oxide, would the ACMD conduct an updated assessment of the health and social harms of nitrous oxide, and following the assessment, advise on whether nitrous oxide should be controlled under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971. To date, Professor Bowden-Jones has not had a reply, and would like the Council to write to him stating our concerns and chase up the response. Nitrous oxide is being used widely by youths across the county and is contributing to the antisocial behaviour our residents are experiencing. After speaking with local police, it became apparent that lack of restrictions on nitrous oxide makes it impossible for the police to combat. Not only is the misuse of the substance causing these kind of problems, it is also emerging that it's having a detrimental effect on the health of these young people, and evidence that the altered state of mind is causing reckless behaviour that could cause them to seriously harm themselves. An example is jumping into rivers to escape police and running in front of traffic. One of the things that happens to the police is that the police cannot intervene with the people in possession of nitrous oxide canisters, even if they are in circumstances where they are clearly not being used for their legitimate use. This needs to be looked at. Council, I move the motion and ask that you all support this. Thank you.
Chair. Craig Martin, Councillor for North Lodge and Chesley Street. I'd like to formally second this motion. Thank you, Councillor Hunt, for bringing this important motion to Council on nitrous oxide. And I just want to focus on, reiterate, two areas I think are of particular importance in this motion. Firstly, the need to legislate and put controls on the distribution. How difficult is it to get nitrous oxide? It's easier than getting an appointment to see your GP. You can get it quicker than some of our A&E waiting times. So easy to get a hold of, anyone can get delivered to their door, no questions asked, legally. Those silver canisters of nitrous oxide are used widely in the catering industry. If you go on Amazon right now, on your tablets, on your phones, you can order nitrous oxide. If you pay for the right delivery, you can probably get it before the end of the day if you need that hit after this meeting today. So we're calling on controls to make it just a bit harder to get. For example, age verification, make it illegal to sell for the purpose of being inhaled, etc. Its ease of access is the reason why it has become one of the most popular mind-altering substances being used on our streets right now. Secondly, because nitrous oxide isn't recognised by the government as a harmful substance used by people for recreational purposes, it's difficult to combat. So we need to provide the resources and powers to such people as the police, who lack the ability to confiscate nitrous oxide from users. But I want to make it clear, we need a public health approach in partnership with all stakeholders to deal with this problem, as opposed to slapping convictions on people. The police have made good progress on blocking off some of the supplies of some drugs, but users just develop something else to give them a buzz, such as nitrous oxide. County Durham Drug and Alcohol Services do a fantastic job. If you've ever seen them at work, being able to have direct conversations with all age ranges, they're passionate about reducing harm and making our community safer, and we should empower this agency, and they can do even more. Whereas criminalises users just leads to being labelled a wrong and reducing their opportunities, pushes them into a pathway of further crime and drug use, and if you lock them up, you're just putting them in a
Excuse me, Councillor, 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And if you lock them up, you're just putting them in a building where you quite often can get access to even worse drugs. But with the proper health-related support, they can become citizens that contribute to society. Council, back the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Joanne Howie, please.
Hi, Councillor Joanne Howie from the Woodhouse Close Ward. I've been reading up on a bit of this. As recent as September, the BMJ published in September that doctors have warned that they are seeing a rise in neurological complications among the young as a result of using nitrous oxide. Not only is this affecting teens that are using this way, but being part of the Adult Health Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee, sorry, get confused, it's also impacting on the NHS quite heavily at the moment with them needing to see doctors. And when there are things happening like jumping in rivers, running in front of cars, it's also going to be impacting on the ambulance, not only the police. So this is why I'm going to be backing this. It's a whole approach that needs to be looked at on the whole, across the scale. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bev Colt.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I wish to support the motion that's been put forward this morning by Councillor Cathy Hunt. For any members who may not know, nitrous oxide is also known as hippie crack and laughing gas, plus many more names. It is the second most commonly used recreational drug behind cannabis. Recent studies confirm that this lethal drug can have a significant and detrimental impact on the lives of those who become addicted to it. The short-lived buzz that can lead to nitrous oxide users taking the gas over and over. The whippets no longer give them the buzz that they want, so they go on to larger canisters. These can cause toxic exposure and nitrous oxide overdose. Inhaling any gas other than oxygen deprives our bodies of the air it needs and can cause brain damage or even death. The government are currently considering undertaking a review into the classification of this drug, and as a council we need to support this motion, and we need to write to them and ask that preventative action is taken as a matter of urgency. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor John Shuttleworth, please.
Thanks, Chair. As portfolio holder for community safety and vice chair of the Safe Durham Partnership, I'm happy to support the motion asking for the Advisory Council on Misuse of Drugs to review the harms caused by nitrous oxide on individuals and its wider impact on local communities. Nitrous oxide is a dangerous drug which can lead to vitamin deficiency, lack of oxygen and potentially suffocation of heart failure. Obviously, community members are worried about this disturbance caused by those using the drug in public, including antisocial behaviour and littering of empty canisters. County Durham has stepped up in its efforts to discourage the use of the drug in response to these concerns, but the drug continues to be used and causes concerns with local residents. I'm therefore in favour of review to understand whether further restrictions are needed nationally, and I'm happy to write a letter appropriately and come back to the mover. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Very happy to support the motion. Many of us have got experience of the misuse of nitrous oxide in our own divisions, and in my division that's at the Low Force Waterfall, in Bowlees, in Upper Teesdale, which during the COVID lockdowns became a centre for essentially waterside parties and raves, which led us, the council, to introducing a public space protection order up there to try and get a handle on the problem. I just want to be clear whose job it is and who we're writing to on this. The Home Secretary wrote last September to Professor Owen Bowden-Jones, who is the chairman of the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs, and it is the Advisory Council who actually weighs up all the evidence and decides whether or not restrictions are advisable, and they then recommend to the Home Office. So it's not, in the first instance, a government decision. Clearly, the then Home Secretary, in writing, wanted them to look at it again. The Advisory Council last looked at it in 2015 and concluded that harmfulness of nitrous oxide didn't seem to warrant control under the Misuse of Drugs Act, but since then the actual amount of its use has increased. And there's also been rising concern, in particular over the long-term effects caused by the inactivation of vitamin B12, which, if undiagnosed and untreated, leads to pernicious anemia, which is not a very nice thing to have, as the name suggests. So I just want to be clear who it is we're writing to, but fully support the motion, and I'm grateful to Councillor Hunt for taking the initiative and bringing this to Council's attention.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I've listened to everything that's been said in the debates with this, and I agree with a lot of the sentiments that's been said, actually. However, I do want to propose an amendment to Councillor Hunt's motion. You know, the original motion's a little disingenuous, given it's come from a Conservative councillor whose party's been in government for well over 10 years, Chair. Whilst I agree with the sentiments and the impact on communities of the misuse of nitrous oxide, we need to acknowledge where the real problem here sits, and that's with this clueless government, Chair. The fact the government makes the laws of the land, the fact, if you read up on the role of the Advisory Council, it's not only government funded, 100% government funded, but the appointments to this committee, the hiring and the firing of members on this committee are made by whom? The Home Secretary. So, you know, I think the government has it well within its gift to sort this out if there was a political will. So let's do away with the smoke and mirrors, and let's make sure that we write the letter to the person who's actually got the influence to be able to do something about this problem in its entirety. So it's for the reasons I've outlined, Chair, that I've proposed an amendment that this council notes the problem caused across our communities by the misuse of nitrous oxide, and calls upon the Home Secretary to do more to pressurise the government-appointed and funded Advisory Council on the misuse of drugs, and for them to review immediately the harm caused by nitrous oxide and better understand whether funding restrictions on the drug are needed, including whether unlawful possession should be made an offence. Chair, that is the proposed amendment. I think it still fulfils the sentiments expressed by members across the chamber, but let's make sure we send a letter to the people who can actually do something about it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Can I?
Yes, Chair, you can. I'll second that, and I'll speak now rather than reserve my right. I agree with the sentiment of Councillor Hunt's motion. I suspect I know what the initial driver behind it may be, and I totally understand and agree with that sentiment. However, if you're on the ground in your community and you know your community well, as I'm sure we all flatter ourselves we do, in many areas, it's not nitrous oxide or poppers or amyl nitrate, goes by any other name. It's the triumvirate of smack, crack and cowies. Cowies are ecstasy, they're now called cowies, by the way, but it's the same thing. And I think that we should be, although they are controlled substances, we should be adding nitrous oxide to that substance, because 40 years ago, in the pub that I used to frequent in Bishop Auckland, which I'm not going to name, it was nothing to do with the landlord, but nitrous oxide was used openly and freely. It was regarded as no different than smoking a cigarette. It is, clearly has already been outlined. I'm not going to repeat what's been said. But finally, as I second Councillor Marshall's motion, I would say to Councillor Bell that an advisory council is purely that, an advisory council, and the Home Secretary and your subsequent Home Secretaries have had it within their gift to do something about this, and they've looked at the advice and they've declined that advice. It's only advice. It's within the gift of the Home Secretary. He can do that unilaterally. Let's ask him to do that.
I'm now handing you over to Helen.
Thank you, Chair. So we have a number of people registered to speak in the queue. They did register to speak before the amendment was moved. So it's just to clarify, as we read the list of names of those that registered to speak when it was the original motion, we are now debating the amendment if you wish to continue and speak. Thank you.
Councillor Jobling.
Thank you very much, Chair. I don't see the need to change the amendment. It is quite clear from Councillor Hunt's amendment what we need to do. The biggest problem I find with this substance is the fact that it's so readily available, and one of the huge issues is it's so cheap. So I do agree with Councillor Hunt's amendment, and I certainly couldn't support Councillor Marshall's amendment, and I look forward to getting some progress on this, because our young children, introducing this stuff to our young children, and if the younger they are, children now are younger than ever, using substances, it affects them so much later on in life. So I do think that this is something we should definitely get behind Councillor Hunt and make sure that we get the motion through so that the ball can start rolling. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just clarify that Councillor Hunt's is a motion and Councillor Marshall's is the amendment?
Yes, I understand that, and I don't agree with Councillor Marshall's amendment, but I did put my request in to speak before Councillor Marshall put his amendment, so, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps we should look at that.
Councillor Fraser-Tinsley.
Thank you, Chair. I think we all recognise that nitrous oxide is a serious problem, but I'm very happy that the amendment, I think the original motion actually in the last sentence refers to wider issues with substance misuse across County Durham, but importantly empowering the key bodies to deal with this. And I'm of the view, and I'm sure some of you would share it, that empowering those bodies is not having 3 Home Secretaries in the period since this was originally put forward to the Council. We need stability in how we're approaching this as a country. And also empowering authorities is not taking money away from drug and substance misuse, which has occurred since 2010 across the area. And I think it's very important that we do recognise that this has to be taken across the board and be dealt with in that way. Finally, a point I would like to make is that empowering local authorities is not having one of those Home Secretaries just coming off with an off-the-cuff remark that marijuana should be classified as a Class A drug last week, when all the evidence points towards that is not the right thing to do. What she's doing there is speaking to the 172,000 members of the Conservative Party, rather than speaking to the issues, the evidence, the facts, and how we deal with the serious problems of substance misuse across County Durham. I will be supporting this amendment, finally, for the fact that it does refer to specifically whether or not possession should be deemed a criminal offence. Our authorities, our police, need to know that. The original statement, the original motion didn't refer to that. The police need to know how they're dealing with this, because one of the issues that was raised by, I think, the second of the motion was that the police don't have powers to deal with this. If it is an offence, they will have. That's why it is appropriate that we deal with and vote for the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Bell, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I didn't have sight of Councillor Marshall's amendment before I made it, but my speech on the motion, I think, was pretty clear that the process is that the Home Secretary asks the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs to review the controls and reviews the medical evidence and reviews the usage and reviews the rest of it. That is the letter from then Priti Patel to Professor Bowden-Jones in September 2021. She has not had a reply to that letter, hence the motion is to write to the Advisory Council whose job it is to review the data and make a recommendation. It is politicising things for the sake of it and a complete misrepresentation of the process to say that the Home Secretary can just do this at the stroke of a pen. That is not how the system works. Anybody who does any research on drugs policy knows how the system works, so I am clear that that is why the original motion to me is the appropriate thing to do. I am sure that when we pass the original motion, Councillor Shuttleworth, in writing to Professor Bowden-Jones of the Advisory Council, asking him to pull his finger out, will have no problem in putting an extra stamp on and copying it to the new Home Secretary, asking the Home Office to take it appropriately seriously as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Craig Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, I am disappointed by this amendment, because as soon as I saw this motion on the paperwork for full council, and as I'm quite passionate about drugs policy as well, the first thing I did was write to Councillor Hunt and say, I'd like to be part of this. I'd like to express how I think we need to tackle this and how we need to present this to full council in the best possible way. So it's disappointing that the opposition has not done that. They've kind of come along here and made a series of instead of trying to find some kind of unified kind of motion that we as a council can kind of agree on and throw towards government to get the best impact. Sorry, Councillor Taylor, I'm speaking here, please. The best thing to do is to actually reach out to people, have those conversations and try to produce the best possible motion for the entire council. And just to go back to what Councillor Bell said, Chair, is that, you know, I've been sat in this chair for about 6 years in the chamber now. And I remember previously I used to get lectured at time and time again about process and procedure and about being an opposition member and banging the drum and going, we need to do this faster, we need to do this quicker, and being repeatedly told by the previous cabinet, there are processes and procedures. And this is yet again another example when we need to follow those processes and procedures to get the best possible impact. So I would ask members to vote down the amendment and support the motion as a whole unamended.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton-Law.
Councillor Sutton-Lloyd, Aycliffe North and Midlands. Yes, I agree with that. I thought when the motion was originally put, it was so simple that it was something that we should all just apply to and get on with. I think the due process system, which Richard has just been explained, is the process that we must be concentrating on. Surely our efforts should be concentrated on getting as much evidence as to why the problem has escalated and got to where it was, and putting that into the system.
Thank you. Councillor Potts.
Councillor Rob Potts, Evenwood Division. For those of you who don't know, I'm an ex-police sergeant, joined Durham Constabulary in the 90s. Since then, I've seen numerous items go to the Advisory Council, being whether that be glue or whether that be MDMA or even things like garden fertiliser being used as drugs within our area. The reason that all these items go from the Home Secretary to the Advisory Council is because the Advisory Council itself is made up of people including everything from legal experts off to chemical experts and other things, and it takes some amount of time to ensure that those things are done right. I've seen myself in my time as a police officer where certain drugs have been classified as being illegal to be in possession of. However, it didn't actually work because they've rushed through that legislation and went, this is the case, that certain breakdown of that drug is illegal, but actually it didn't work because they've slightly altered it. And the reason it goes there is to ensure the Advisory Council ensure that's right, and not the government who make rash decisions who have no expertise in drugs. So on that basis, I'll back the Councillor's original motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lucy Hoddle.
Thank you, Chair. Young people tell me it's hippie crack. That's what they call it. That's a street name. And my colleagues say, you know, have some street cred, because we do talk to young people, and that's the name that they've given to it, and it's a fashionable drug. You've seen over time how that spread. It started in one particular part of the county, and it's spread across into other areas. And obviously, we are all concerned about it. We all have a duty to protect our young people. but we are going to pay the price for it as well. There'll be long-lasting mental health in particular, effects from what's going on. And it's not new. The public health have done a tremendous amount of work in this particular area. And it leads us on to the scrutiny report that we just had this week. And I'm sorry if I bore people, but it's linked to the events that take place in terms of water safety, cold water shock, and at the scrutiny last week, we were talking about throw ropes where young people gather, and obviously fatalities has occurred. And sometimes, I'm not saying always, but sometimes it's linked to such activity. And also defibrillators for our wardens would be another good idea, isn't it? We can have lots of ideas to improve our services that we deliver. And then two things I think really need linking to this, and it's good that other people can widen the discussion and have that wider debate. And it's not an option to do nothing, and I think today we should all come together to make sure we support this amendment and do the right thing on behalf of our young people and the people of the county. And what I would say is to the members today, support the amendment and let's have some powers to do more and to get the job done. I call all the members here today to support this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Ormerod.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased that this issue has come to Council today, and I don't think it's something that should be dividing the Chamber. I can appreciate the amendment, and I don't think it's a bad amendment or anything. The problem I have with it is that as I read it, if the amendment is accepted, then we will be writing to the Home Secretary to ask them to do something, and not writing to the Advisory Council. And for that reason, I do think the original motion is superior to the amendment, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Olwen-Cohen.
Thank you, Chair. I just really, I'm quite confused in that Councillor Bell really, is he really saying that the Advisory Council has more influence than a Government Home Secretary? Now, I know that this government is in trouble and there's a revolving door of government ministers at the moment, but really, it's quite astonishing that the Conservative Deputy Leader really believes that the Advisory Council is more influential and carries more weight than the Government Home Secretary. I find that hard to believe. I fully support the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McKeon.
Thank you, Chair. The Home Secretary may not be able to change legislation with the stroke of a pen, but she could write to the Advisory Council. A letter that was previously sent was sent 2 Home Secretaries ago. We have a brand new Home Secretary. We don't fully understand what her priorities are yet. Surely it's useful for us as elected representatives to write to the elected representative who has the most power over this issue and to engage with her directly. To me, that just seems like the smartest possible tactics, taking the politics out of it. This amendment also moves us forward in the debate because it calls for unlawful possession to potentially be made an offence. As said before, this would give our local law enforcement and us more power, more opportunity to deal with what is a very important and pressing issue.
Thank you. Councillor Declan Mulholland.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't really see how the amendment put forward is hugely controversial, really. I mean, what we're talking about is getting in touch with the Home Secretary to put pressure on. So I think I've heard speeches from across the floor about, uniting the council on this issue, and it shouldn't really be a bone of contention. And I think if you look at the wording and what we've put forward here, I don't think it is. I think it's more building on the intentions of the original motion and putting things further into practice. So I really would encourage all members, particularly independents, etc., to get behind this amendment, because I think it's far more direct. It's not controversial, and it's talking about getting stuff done as opposed to writing directly to the Advisory Council. So I'm speaking in favour of this motion, amendment to the original motion.
Thank you. Councillor Markwell.
Thank you, Chair. I think anybody sat at home would be wondering why we've just spent the last 20 minutes talking about where you send a particular bit of a letter to. But the reality is that it's been made very clear to us by the mover, by Councillor Bell, that, and I would say somebody over there, I think it was Councillor McEwen, just mentioned that this shouldn't be political, but it was the other side that's made it political with this change. We know who it is who makes the decisions, who then advises government. We know who it is that we have to write to. We've been told who it is we have to write to. The sensible thing here would be for Councillor Marshall to withdraw his motion so the right person gets the letter and gets on with doing the job.
Thank you. Councillor Joanne Howie, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking there, listening to this amendment, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why would we be writing to the person who would then go to the advisory board? Why not make it quicker and go straight to the advisory board, and then they can go to who they need to go to after that? You cut out the middleman and go to the people who need to discuss it first to then advise government. That's how it's done. That's the best way to move this forward. So I will not go with the amendment.
Thank you. There is nobody else registered to speak. Councillor Croot.
Thank you, Chair. I pressed the button, but I hadn't verified the request. I'm not going to draw this out because there have been a lot of valuable comments made this morning, and I think there is agreement on the cause, the effect, and the prevalence of the problem. We need to be focused this morning on where the most effective solution lies, though. The bottom line is, you either support the amendment and hold the government to account, or you vote against the amendment and let the government off the hook. I recommend we vote for the amendment.
Thank you. There is nobody else registered to speak. So if not, can I bring in Councillor Hunt in for a right of reply?
Thank you, Chair. Listening to everything that everybody's said, I'm really pleased that everyone's in agreement with me that this needs to be brought forward. We were elected in May 2021. It was something I became very, very passionate about, and I did a lot of research before I even decided to do a motion. Being a new councillor, I wanted to be sure that what I was doing was the right thing. Therefore, as I stated in the beginning, we wrote a letter in 2021 to the Advisory Council who have not responded. To me, we need to write the letter to the Advisory Council to ask them to respond to doing some kind of legislation on nitrous oxide. I got together with some other councillors and we discussed what we thought would look best. I am not one for criminalising children, and the main issue here is about the ready sale of nitrous oxide and its how easy it is accessible to young people. In doing restrictions on the sale of nitrous oxide would obviously help this situation immensely, and we would in turn not be criminalising young people. We're talking children the age of 10, 11, 12 years old who are using these capsules. So on that basis, I do ask this chamber to go with the first motion and not the amended. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, I'd just like to request a name vote for this, please.
10 members. 10 members. Councillor Marshall. We're going to the vote. We're going to the vote on the amendment, so I'm handing over to Helen.
Thank you, Chair. So we are voting on the amendment as moved by Councillor Marshall, which was on your screen, but has disappeared. But we are voting on the amendment. It's 1 in favour, 2 against, 3 to abstain. We did have a valid request for a named vote, so the way in which people voted will appear in the minutes of the meeting. If you press the wrong button, correcting the right button will correct your vote. And if you could wait until you hear the buzzer so that the vote's open, please. Thank you.
The vote is closed.
Chair. Sorry, Chair. Could I say
Sorry, Councillor
just
Wilkes.
a clarification, Chair? Previously, we've seen who actually votes in the meeting. Have we changed the policy on that, or is it just today that we aren't able to show the names?
We should be able to show the names after the slides, Councillor Wilkes. So, you close the vote, didn't you? So it's 54, 59 against, abstention 0, so the amendment falls. Just turn your mic on.
For 50, against 59, abstentions none. Amendment falls. The amendment has fallen. The debate goes back to the original motion. Is there anyone who has not already spoken on the original motion would like to speak now? Councillor Joe Quinn.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support my colleague's motion, not just for harm reduction, but also for the environmental factor and the visual impact. The nitrous oxide canisters are often disposed of on the streets, which in itself causes issue, but not only that, they are often disposed of in parks where children can see them. I urge all members to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, whereas I disagree, but I'm not surprised that the coalition here again back the Tories in County Hall and nationally. I think, Chair, what I'd like to do is just reflect on some of the debates this morning. And actually, although I don't agree with where the letter's going, I think a letter to go somewhere would be better than no letter at all. So I would like to support the motion that's before us now. Although I don't agree with where it's going, I think it's better than nothing. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle Walton.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say we're all aware of the issues and the consequences, I think, of the misuse of the nitrous oxide, as we've established this morning. As a council, I think we definitely have a responsibility to all of our residents, whether that be those who are impacted as a user of this drug or as a resident who's been impacted by the actions of the users. So I'd like to thank Councillor Hunt for bringing this motion today. I fully support it and I would urge all members to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hopgood.
Thanks, Chair. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I just want to say how disappointed I am with the opposition leader who's politicised what should have been a straightforward report. And having listened to how we want to protect young people, the fact that they included in that amendment an amendment to criminalise young people for something that they're doing is absolutely despicable. And I'm appalled that that's how they think of their local communities, in criminalising young people going forward on something that we can work with them, with health, and do it in a better way.
Councillor Paul Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Council. Can I just say that I'm disappointed with a lot of you, quite honestly. This is not about politics. We know what it's about. It's a means to an end. If this letter works, fantastic, but we failed before. If it fails again, do we then write again and fail again? I think the best way to progress this would have been the way of the amendment. That has fallen, but I will, as my leader says, support the motion. And thank you for bringing the motion. It's an important motion. We need to do something about this, but I feel we've made a mistake this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There's nobody else registered to speak. Councillor Hunt, would you like your right to reply?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I am totally against criminalising children. I do think that nitrous oxide is a big, big issue, not just in this county but across the country. I'm proud of this council for taking the lead and writing to the advisory board about the misuse of nitrous oxide. I'm proud of us all for standing up for something that we believe is wrong. And politically, I don't care. I just want this thing stopped. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to the vote. Yes.
I didn't indicate to speak on this, but I'm really quite anxious to know where the very idea that people here, the Labour councillors, were talking about criminalisation. Can someone please ask me answer the question as to where that came in? It's outrageous that the leader of this council
Excuse me,
say
please.
that in this
No
chamber.
arguing on.
Point of clarity, Chair. Would you be able to bring the amendment back up to give all of members the opportunity to read the actual amendment so that they can understand it? Because I wouldn't like to think we were going to a vote without people understanding. Thank you, Chair.
The amendment has been emailed to colleagues. The vote has been closed. It's been taken. We've moved on.
The amendment has been emailed to colleagues. We're now moving on with the motion. Thank you.
Chair, could I just request a name vote, please?
10 members. Oh.
Okay, members, so we're voting on the original motion. It's 1 in favour, 2 against, 3 to abstain, and we've had a valid request for a name vote, so how you vote will appear in the minutes.
The vote is closed. Thank you. For 107, against none, abstentions 1. Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Joe Quinn, can you move your motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. This council is to request that Living and other housing associations open an email address specifically for councillors to direct concerns and work such as trimming of hedges. Chair, I recognise the hard work that Cabinet Member for Assets James Ronaldson is doing with the housing associations in the county. I'd also like to say I do think all housing associations do a great job and are great partners for the council. However, within my ward of Ferry Hill and Kirk Merrington, Living have land and houses. We have to use the contact@living.co.uk, which is the same email address that the public use. Often we get several complaints about one issue and have to go through the same channels the public do, meaning the same complaint is being made several times. I've personally found that in some cases issues aren't picked up. With a dedicated email address specifically for councillors, we can tell residents to inform us of problems and we can directly email the dedicated email address and streamline issues and complaints. Instead of 10 people, including councillors, all emailing the general email address with one complaint, we will have one councillor emailing with one complaint. This can only increase efficiency and hopefully improve the residents' experience with the housing association. It's my understanding that other housing associations have a dedicated email address for councillors and MPs, such as Carbon Homes in the north of the country. Chair, I would also like to add that just this morning I received a phone call from Catherine, who works at Believe Housing. She told me that Believe Housing fully support this motion, and as she stated, councillors are the boots on the ground. Having spoken with several councillors from different groups, residents, housing associations who are all in favour of this motion, I'm optimistic, Chair, that this motion will receive the full support of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chair. Neville Jones, Aycliffe East. I'm happy to second Councillor Quinn's motion. A dedicated County Council email address would, in my opinion, be a step in the right direction to improving relations with the social housing providers and be a massive help to the residents that we serve. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Kevin Shaw, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could you put the amendment on the screen, please? Do you have the amendment which was previously submitted in the business papers? I'm quite happy to read it out, Chair, if that's easier. I'll read the amendment out. This council's request that the housing portfolio holder engage with the social housing providers to re-establish regular scheduled meetings and rebuild the links between elected members and the social housing management teams to facilitate the raising of key priorities and direct concerns in order to address any outstanding work that may need to be delivered within the neighbourhoods and communities in which they operate. In moving this amendment, Chair, first of all, as been pointed out, all of our social housing providers have enabled access via their own customer service teams, which provide direct contact for residents to raise issues. This is open and also available for elected members to use for issues they may have or to use on behalf of their respective local residents. Prior to May 2021, when an issue which had been previously raised through the system remained outstanding or was of an urgent nature or needed a strategic approach to be applied, members had the opportunity during regularly held panel meetings within the strategic and neighbourhood managers of the housing providers to ensure that matters of concern were addressed and resolved. It also identified the work raised through the agreed priorities and therefore shaped the neighbourhoods and the places. The motion as written is asking for something which doesn't go far enough and will not achieve anything and will also not ensure any priority is applied. What would ensure that direct concerns and outstanding work is carried out is by feeding this into strategic work programmes within the neighbourhoods in which the provider operates, and that's by re-establishing the regular meetings with elected members. This link also enabled access on a one-to-one basis directly provided for specific contact by members through the managers themselves as relationships were built. I urge members to reject the motion and support this amendment, which isn't just an email address, but reflects the engagement previously enacted as part of the housing strategy and nationally recognised, for which this council received an award in 2021. Thank you, Chair.
I'm bringing in Helen on this one.
Chair, it's perhaps helpful to clarify before we ask for a seconder to that amendment. The amendment had been provided for a previous meeting but wasn't aware it was being brought forward for this meeting. The team are just making arrangements for the wording of the amendment to be circulated to all of you via your emails, and we'll see if we can load it into the system, but that might take a few minutes. So we'll get it emailed around so that you can see what it is you are being asked to consider. Thank you.
Could I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Curtis Bahari, Ferriol Division. I'd formulate a second Councillor Shaw's amendment. I'm supporting the amendment because I don't think the motion goes far enough. I think we as a major local authority should be doing more than simply asking housing providers to set up email addresses. This motion gives the example of Living. There's actually someone at Living who deals specifically with councillor requests, even through the feedback at Living. And this actually highlights the main point, I think. It's not that housing providers don't know about the issues. It's that they do know and the actions are left or left outstanding. So, which is why I agree that the Cabinet Member for Housing should engage with the housing providers directly and rebuild the links that appear to have been lost. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, please, Chair. Will this motion carry? Because it's my belief that this completely negates the original motion. To nothing to do with the original motion.
Could I ask Helen to come in on that, please?
My understanding is that it's proposing an alternative course of action, which is not the same as just simply voting down your motion, so it's valid. Chair, once again, we've got a number of speakers who registered to speak before the amendment was moved. So again, if you want to speak, we are now debating the amendment. And the amendment's now shown on screen.
Give you a minute to read through so you know what it's for. Councillors, you'll be speaking on the amendment now. Councillor Joanne Howie.
Thank you, Chair. Reading this amendment again, this is something that happens already. We already have our portfolio holder who speaks to the housing associations on a very regular basis. There's already a connection there. When I first came into this job, it was difficult to know who to go to. You emailed their generic email address. You couldn't go to anyone. There was one stage where I had to actually phone the police to help a resident because I couldn't get through to anybody at the housing association, whereas getting hold of the housing association would have sorted the situation quickly. So I had to then use another service and taken that away from somebody else. What we need is a way just to get into the housing associations quickly when we need to. Now we've been in our position a bit longer, we've got built up that close relationship with our housing association where we can now message people within that, and we work really well with them and have regular meetings with them. It's in those emergency situations where you need to get hold of somebody, you need an important email address to get to. The rest of it already happened, so I don't see the point in an amendment. It's just having emergency access, quicker access into those housing associations. Thank you.
Councillor Cathy Hunt.
Thank you, Chair.
Just a little bit pretty similar to Councillor Howie. In our ward in Woodhouse Close, there was a flagship project and a designated email address set up for that. That helped immensely in being able to get in touch with the people involved. The email address is the motion. We do meet regularly once a month with the housing providers as set as standards, which is what's in the amendment. So we're not asking for anything that we don't already have. We're asking for something new on Councillor Quinn's motion.
Councillor Sutton-Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank Joint Administrator Councillor Joe Quinn for putting the excellent first motion in. I think the amendment does deter from what we're trying to achieve. We've already heard, we already have meetings, we already have the system there that has been mentioned by previous councillors. But quite frankly, it doesn't work in these cases. This is trying to amend a major problem for many residents, which has dragged on for quite a while. I think you would all agree with me that many of the potential interventions that we're wanting to do was because incidents have either become very, very urgent or there's been a total breakdown in communications. We want to try and break that logjam, and the whole idea of a dedicated number and a dedicated contact is to try and do that. I think we should all accept that if we get to the point where residents are coming to us as councillors, it's because they've got real concerns. And it's that logjam point of being able to get in and trying to do something about the problem. Problems happen, these will happen all the time. But the secret is being able to have somebody that grasps the nettle and sorts it out. A dedicated number, a dedicated email address where you know you're going to get a response and the other side is going to realise that there's something important that needs to be looked at. That's what the original motion was all about. So I will not accept the amendment. I think it's a better way to try and raise concerns and to find solutions quickly is what is being proposed. This motion and this amendment, I will not support the amendment and we'll discuss further the motion. Bye.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. Couple of things. I mean, what an absolute lazy motion this is, mind. It's a reflection for me about how partnership working under this Tory-led coalition and the reputation of working alongside people that this council has sank to. You know, I mean, real partnerships are based on people. What on earth do you think sits at the end of the email address you're going to end email about, oh, sorry, your emergency situation or your non-emergency situation, whatever the original motion was focused at. I'm really not sure why this motion's here at full council. You know, it doesn't help to build any positive relationships, as Councillor Shaw said. In fact, it does the opposite. No organisation's perfect. I fully accept that. Inevitably, there'll be problems, there'll be issues that crop up. But even as a council, we're far from perfect, but Living already have a dedicated email address, like we've heard from the local member in Ferry Hill. If this wasn't working for Councillor Quinn, maybe he should have tried to call on the relationships he's built over the last 18 months, or even those that his cabinet members built over the last 18 months. I mean, what did Living say, Councillor Quinn, Councillor Rowlandson, when you've approached them and asked them about this dedicated email address? Because I'm hopeful that you've done that before bringing this here. It's just such an absolute crazy motion. You know, I can't support it because of a reflection of what's happening under the current leadership here at the council, and another relationship with a major partner that's gone down the Swanee. A message to all of our communities: if your councillor can't get your hedge trimmed, can't get your bush cut, has an emergency problem, there's 55 councillors on this council, Labour members, who'll quite happily sort it out for you. Give us a ring, we're here and waiting. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Michelle Walton. Quiet, please, everybody.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I definitely think this amendment should be rejected. I, for one, don't think this is a waste of time motion brought to the council. I listen to everything our residents say, even if it is little, and even if other councillors think it might be a waste of their time. I actually take on board what residents say. So it is important that we get better links. I'm a councillor who's a full-time worker as well, as I know many of us are. To add in a complication via this amendment to say, I've got something I need to raise with you, but can we have a meeting to discuss it, just further complicates that process. I think the original motion of just having a standard email address that I could email somebody at 11:30 at night, having had contact from a resident at 11:20 at night, that then means somebody's going to deal with it straight away the next day without having to have a meeting or a scheduled meeting or a walkabout, is a much better way to do it. So because of that, I'm going to ask that everybody rejects this ridiculous amendment, supports the original motion, which is simple because our residents have asked us to bring it to you, and I would like all of the residents to know there's a joint administration councillor near them who listen to even the little things, and I would ask that we support the original motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lucy Hovels, please.
Thank you, Chair. Somebody who's got the largest division across the county, we have a number of housing providers. We just don't have Living. We have one side of the road Living and the other side could be Believe, but we also have Home Housing and many, many others. And I've been on the council long enough to know that to have contact with any organisations, you've got to have that relationship. So it's clear to me relationships have broke down. We have people from housing providers, whether it be Leave, Living or wherever, on the ground, and I can pick the phone up and I have a one-to-one conversation with them, you know, and they respond as quick as I would expect them to. And if not, we'd get together and we'd meet. We do regular walks around the community. You know, I don't think there's a day goes by that there's not something, whether the ladies' roof's been blown off through the storm or being flooded or whatever. And it's done by relationship. An email won't help me at all, I can tell you that. Won't help me, and it certainly won't help the lady up the road who I was speaking to yesterday, 93-year-old, who doesn't even have an email, to email me. You know, people talk, and that's how it happens. You have a conversation, you build them relationships up, and you build meaningful partnerships. Now, to me, if somebody's not working, I suggest they sit down with me, and I'll show them how it works. Because it doesn't happen by yourself. And an email, some of the housing providers have people who pick the calls up to emails based in London. How's that going to help me in Trimden or somebody around the corner in Wheatley Hill? It's not going to, that meaningful relationship is very important. And I think this will help with that. I've been on Living Board. I know Believe have got vacancies at the moment. So if people are interested, let them go and apply. I'm sure they'll be made very, very welcome. I'm sure you'll learn a lot when you go on.
1 minute, please.
In that respect. And in terms of trimming the hedges, I didn't know some of my housing providers did that because it's contractors. They don't. Housing providers don't pick it up anymore, and they certainly don't look after that environment surrounding the properties. And them's the issues I would like to have debated and put on the table. And I think that would help the council as well, because we're paying for some of that as a county council. So it would be helpful to have more dialogue and more discussion and more opportunities to do something, but certainly not just by the email. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the amendment and my working relationship with social housing groups, I have an excellent working relationship with my social housing groups. I've never ever had an issue. I can ring them whenever I want. But I have to agree with what Councillor Marshall says. To get their meetings up and running again, they were fantastic years ago, where you can sit. You don't, if you've got an issue, you don't go wait for a meeting to happen. You still have your contacts. But I agree with the amendment. I think it's quite good and it's a bit more in depth, and I'll be voting with the amendment as well, because I'd like to see meetings start again. And there's nothing better than sitting across a table, looking at someone in the eyes and telling them what your problems are on your division. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bev Colt, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I won't be supporting the amendment, and with respect, I don't actually need a housing portfolio officer to establish meetings for me. I actually do it myself with the housing providers. I have regular walkabouts with the housing officers and the social housing providers, and I highlight areas of concern with them. Oh, sorry. That. Sorry, I don't know what that is. However, I would welcome a direct email address for all social housing providers in case I'm ever contacted by a resident outside of my ward and I know who to contact for them. That actually has happened recently, so I would support the amendment as originally proposed. Sorry, the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Shirley Quinn, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for highlighting this, Councillor Quinn. No relation, by the way. But I must say that I've got an excellent working relationship with all of my housing providers. And, you know, I have Living as my major social landlord. There's Believe Housing, Home Housing, Railway Housing. The list continues. And having, you know, this is just pinpointing here for Living, and I think it's quite unfair. And I know for a fine fact in Ferryhill they've got more than Living as a housing social landlord there. I have regular contact with my housing providers. I go on the estate walkabouts when invited along to do so. I go on one at least every month. I've got excellent working relationships with all of the officers there. And I just wish that every single councillor in here had put themselves out there to have that connection. But I do have to say that I totally support this amendment. When Kevin Shaw was a portfolio holder, as he's already alluded to, he did arrange actually important meetings that we had on a quarterly basis with Living, who again, like I say, was the major landlord in our area. And we got some valuable information. We got the good links there with the officers. We had good contacts. We were given all contact details that we needed. But more importantly, and this is the important factor, we got to know how their policies and procedure worked. That as a housing provider, they are totally different to what once was council housing. So, you know, we've got to understand that their ways of working are different. And at the end of the day, we've got no legislation over them. You know, they are their own landlords in their own right. And whereas once over the council could have a little bit of input, we don't have that anymore. So really, the most important thing at all, and I must emphasise this, we must have those relationships built with every single one of our housing providers, not to be telling them what to do,
not to be, you know, demanding that we have this done and demanding that. We need better work and relationships. And, you know, I really can't say that enough. And thank you for your time, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Atkinson.
Thank you, Chair. A little while ago, I was a new councillor. I understand where Councillor Quinn's coming from, and I understand why he's asked the question. I asked a similar question myself at the time. The thing is, these questions keep coming at us from the point of view of this council house I live in. I live in this council house till last year. So you keep getting questions and problems that are coming from the housing association, the living problems or the housing association problems, but they come to us first. And I understand the question, I can understand where he's coming from. He's trying to get there quicker. We all like to get there quicker, but it's called queue jumping. And it doesn't help you in any way, shape or form. Once you've been in the queue, you don't want somebody jumping past you. So you've got to go through the process, and we've made these associations. We know these people, we work with these people. If we get a dedicated email address, the public will find out and they'll think, oh wow, this is the quickest way through the council. Instead of us getting them second of the associations and trying to help them with it, we'll get it first. And they'll come to us first for this dedicated email address. I think as long as we're working with them properly and we have our own associations, and Councillor Quinn can network with anybody else. We've all got networks saying we can all help each other with this. I think everything pretty much is in place, and what the amendment's saying is pretty much of that. And we can work together with these people. But I don't think we'll get any further forward with these dedicated email address. And to be fair, it shouldn't really work like that. It will only drop you into the system at a different spot, and you won't get any further up the queue. And I think, I mean, I've been on that Contact Us at Living. You get an answer as quick as anything. So I think it's pretty much in place, and I'd hate for us
1
to
minute,
get
please.
This. Sorry, what? Is it getting chucked? Oh, that's
1 minute. No,
I've got a minute left. So, anyway, what I'm saying is, from that point of view, it'll probably just get more housing problems coming to him first, rather than going in the right direction first, and going through the housing association, and then he has to help with the problem, and from there on, I think we've all got contacts that will get it as quick as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Something that should have been simple has been turned into, I don't know what. I have regular meetings with all the housing providers, individually and collectively. The Housing Forum is still part of Council's contact with the housing providers. And just to, this is what we do as a portfolio holder. It's my job to be able to put any problems that have been put from my members or our members of the council to the social providers. Councillor Quinn's motion is a simple thing because and I know myself, as an elected member, we get all sorts of problems with the social providers, and his idea is to make it simpler. And I don't understand the rest of this is impossible. I have been to the, just to prove that the portfolio holders does do something. This year we went to the UK REEF, which is the Real Estate and Infrastructure Forum in Leeds. All of the providers were there. I met with them. This is the first time we'd been there as a council, and it was there was 80 stands there, 14 or 15 of them other local authorities, and we met with a plethora of people who wanted to come to this county and invest. And this is the first time we've put our stall out to do that. I believe that what we have at the moment is fine as far as
1 minute, James.
contact with social housing providers is, and what Councillor Quinn suggests is that we make it an easier route to get to the providers, with a dedicated person to answer their queries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Fraser Tinsley, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think we all agree that our relationship with the RPs, the housing associations, is really important, not just because people still do call them council houses, as we all know, but because thousands of our residents do live in these houses that these manage. Now, I think there's two things here. This is about communication on two levels. And the first part of it's about email addresses. And I think it's interesting, some of the people who have good contacts straight in there, like myself who spoke earlier, the people, the councillors who've been around for a long time, they have those personal relationships that maybe new councillors don't have. So yes, absolutely, we need better email communication with these RPs. And I think that the amendment does that. But why I'll be supporting the amendment is this. And I think I'm very glad to hear and heartened to hear that the portfolio holder is having those regular meetings that were established in the past. Because I was going to ask about that. And I think we have to all understand here that these housing associations over the last decade have moved away from councils, as we know it, as their management and ownership and such like has changed. But I think if we were to support the amendment today rather than the actual motion, what we will be doing across this chamber is standing up and saying that those relationships, those between ourselves and the RPs is really important, and we all recognise that across the chamber, regardless of political party. And what we're really doing effectively, rather than actually criticising the portfolio holder for failing to engage, I think as he's indicated from his side over there, is saying that, yes, engage, we want more engagement, let's push this forward, and we all stand behind that. So I would encourage all members here to please stand up and actually don't just sit down and vote and support the amendment, because links at the grassroots about hedges are important, but we need those strategic links, which are there. I'm glad to hear it, but we need to push them forward, strengthen them, and take it into the future as things change. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Les Madelson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fortunate, really, that Living is one of our major people in our area. I support the motion. Living do provide us with a direct email address. I haven't got direct email addresses for others, but I also support the amendment. And I support the amendment because we did have regular, every 3 months, meetings with Living predominantly, and it gave us the strategic direction of Living, how they planned the way that they were going to perform, and they listened also to all of the councillors who attended those meetings from across our patch, and they took note of it, and where they could, they included it in their strategic direction. So on this occasion, I'm in a very difficult position in that I agree with both of them, because we also have other housing providers, such as Home and Believe, who have relatively small numbers within the Tudor and Spennymoor divisions, where I would like some direct contact to be able to communicate with them. And I also would like to be involved in regular meetings with them. So on this occasion, I do feel that I must go with the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Appleby.
It's all right.
I apologise.
You're forgiven.
Mark Appleby.
Councillor Mark Appleby, Tudor Division. Oh dear. The amendment seems to miss the point, doesn't it? And addresses a completely different section or different issues. Councillor Marshall says it's a crazy motion, but he's happy to amend it and move it forward. Don't understand that. Councillor Quinn's motion offers a very simple, pragmatic approach to a problem that I guess we all encounter on a day-to-day basis. The amendment is sledgehammer to crack a nut, just for the sake, in my opinion, of making an amendment to a worthy motion. I won't be voting for it, but I guess you'll know that when you call for a name vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Ormer.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a very unfortunate amendment because, as Councillor Robinson said earlier, and I'm paraphrasing him, the bottom half of the motion I can agree, of the amendment I can agree with. The problem with the amendment is it removes the request for the specific request for a dedicated email address for councillors. I don't think it was necessary to move that. I think that could have been left in, and I think if it had been left in, the amendment could have been accepted without any fuss.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
Is that myself, Chair? My council, what a lot of talk, what a lot of words for a very, very simple solution can be found, surely to goodness. Thank you for your motion, but I do rise in support of Kevin Shaw's excellent amendment. I'm sorry to hear that you're having problems, Councillor Quinn. As a relatively new councillor, you will learn, you will get help and support. Perhaps your portfolio will like to turn around and sort that out for you immediately, because I'm intrigued that this is a motion for council. But what I would say is, and in tribute to Councillor Shaw, Councillor Shaw has a fantastic record in this area, a great history in helping and working with our housing providers. So please, I would urge us all to grasp what has been proposed this morning. Yes, you should have a dedicated email address. Of course you should. This will actually go further, and we can sit with the housing providers and ask that question, or you can ask the portfolio holder this morning to do it for you. That would be the easiest and simplest way. I am intrigued, this is at council, but I recognise if you have got a problem, it must be addressed, and I feel the amendment does far more than address it. It actually moves it on further and will make us all better councillors for accepting the motion, and more effective councillors, shall I say, by accepting the amendment. Thank you, Councillor Quinn. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Eddie.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Eddie Adam, representing Aycliffe West. Colleagues on the other side of the chamber there has indicated that this is a very simple motion, and a simple motion that should have been debated very quickly and gone through. But, Chair, I believe that that is the problem with the original motion, is it is too simple to focus on living and to, as the motion says, looking at hedges. Dealing with issues at council and with housing providers is more than just dealing with hedges. It is, as other colleagues have said, emergency situations, other problems that you tend to have. But as others have said, the work that we do as councillors are ongoing every single day, every minute of the day, and we do build up good relationships. The actual amendment that you've got here in front of you is actually there to actually improve that engagement, as been said previously. By improving these links, you will clearly improve the opportunity to raise your concerns and your issues with the various housing associations. So in some respects, as Councillor Marshall indicated, this motion is a bit of a lazy motion. And really, we need to have more meat on the bones to make sure that we can actually communicate more effectively with our housing association chair. Plus, also in terms of the portfolio holder, surely it is the portfolio holder's role to keep these communications links going. And all that my colleague is indicating is that he should actually be raising these issues that's been raised here today with the housing associations. So, Chair, in supporting of the amendment, I think all members should be supporting this and not be looking for a particular dedicated email address, because ultimately a dedicated email address will only go to one person.
One minute.
One person will then have to disseminate it to the other individuals within the different housing associations. So you're not going to be able to speak to one individual. Like other councillors have said, we've all got our own personal email addresses, mobile numbers of various officers within each of the housing associations, and I would urge Councillor Quinn to build up those relationships and also get those particular communications. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jay.
Thanks, Chair. There's been a lot of comment about new councillors. I'm a new councillor, and my relationship with Believe, Living and every other provider in my division is really good. And like Councillor Hovels, who I share division with, somebody comes to me about a problem in a social housing association, I don't waste time sending an email. I pick a phone up and I speak to somebody, and it's dealt with in a timely manner. And I do have to say, mind, the comments interrupting on this side, when members on this side are speaking, are quite disgusting, by the way, and they're going unchecked.
Excuse me, councillors, please.
But I think what Councillor Shirley Quinn alluded to before is these housing associations are independent bodies. We can request they open an email, we can request they do whatever we want. They can say no, and when and if they do say no, what will happen is we'll continue working the way we are, which is working for us. So I'll be supporting the amendment because that's exactly what it alludes to, and I am going to request a name vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton-Lloyd has requested to speak but has already spoken on the amendment. So can I bring in Councillor Charlie Kay is the next councillor.
Councillor Kay, the voice of reason. Oh, and there goes my water. Never mind. Okay, I know I've done it again. I don't mean to make light of what is quite a serious topic. Actually, you might all be surprised here, so I'm glad you're all sitting down. I can see in both the motion and the amendment. And I think a little bit's been made about Councillor Quinn being a new councillor. That doesn't mean that he or any other new councillor lacks aptitude and the forbearance to go and do the things he needs to do. I was a new councillor once. You know, I know what it's like. You're all right. You've made a good start. Crack on. Seriously. Some of the new councillors in here are doing very, very, very well. And I wanted to make that point before I move on. What I want to ask is a legal question, actually, and this is the interesting bit. Would it be possible in some way to merge the motion into the amendment, because the amendment is a lot larger in what it outlines than the amendment is, which is, and I'm not meaning this in a jocular way, but it's about trimming bushes in Sedgefield. The amendment is larger. Is it possible, if members were in agreement, that in some way, we seem to all be in agreement here. We like them both, but we think we can only have one or the other. Why don't we have both? I mean, I'm not politically in line with him, obviously, but the independent guy over there summed it up perfectly. Yeah, I don't know your name, I'm sorry. Yeah, Stephen spoke. He summed it up perfectly to me. And I'm asking, and I hope that my leader is listening with favourable ears here, because if he isn't, I'm going to get my backside kicked when I get down the end of that room. But hey-ho, it might be worth it. I don't know. Is it legal to do that? And if it was legal, I'm asking, would we be prepared in some way to see a compromise?
Well, Helen will have to answer that one. I am sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Kay. I think there's two ways in which you could do that. So there could be an alteration to the motion that's been moved by Councillor Shaw, because that's the one that's currently under debate, to incorporate the original motion. And that would require the meeting's consent, and that consent would be signified without discussion. The alternative way to deal with it would be to dispose of this as it is, and then present the combined two motions as a second amendment.
As I said, Chair, I don't know which way the wind's going to blow on this one. There might be something blindingly obvious that I've missed, but no, there might be. So I would leave it up to the meeting to decide whether that's possible and whether it's pragmatic.
Councillor Shaw. Councillor Shaw, could I ask, are you minded to do what has just been suggested or not? A yes or no, please.
I've got difficulty with this, Chair, because the email addresses do already exist. The point I was making was that...
So the answer's no?
No, Chair.
No, thank you. If you can just bear with us till Helen sorts through. Hello, councillors. Councillor Paul Taylor has requested to speak again, but he has already spoken, so therefore we must move forward. Oh, sorry, Richard Bell, you've just popped up.
I'm not sure about Richard, Chair, but I've been in the queue all the time.
Yeah, I was.
You're not Red Trestran?
Chair, perhaps a dedicated email address might
Chair,
help.
since I am in the queue and would like to speak, I will speak. But I would suggest that if people who are in the queue and devices say they are in the queue put their hands up, then perhaps Democratic Services can attend to them and find out what's going on. Yeah, it's a pity we can't have had some sort of hybrid motion. The issue, it seems to me, is Councillor Quinn's original motion for a dedicated email address is all about efficiency of communications. It's so that you're getting multiple communications going into the housing providers. Councillor can mop up multiple requests, send one email in, and it gets attended to. That's efficient communications. Unfortunately, the amendment negates that, and as the head of legal said right at the start, it proposes an alternative form of action, namely to have meetings to discuss issues. Now, I, for one, only want to meet housing associations when there are big issues or intractable issues or strategic issues. I want to be able to get through to housing associations quickly for an individual issue, and generally speaking, people do not come to the councillors before they've already tried the housing association. Usually people who come to me have tried the housing association, got nowhere, and then come along and say, councillor, I've tried, I've got nowhere, and all I can do at the moment is email the general inquiries email, which doesn't work, or try and dig out and find out who's the head of operations for a particular housing association and try and make a direct contact, which is inefficient. So it seems to me Councillor Quinn's original motion was all about efficiency in communications. And yes, beyond that, if it's beyond a relatively simple email request and reporting things, yes, you need to have meetings. But the idea that you replace emails with physical meetings seems to me, well, I'm sorry, but that's what it says. Read the first it's not saying emails and meetings. It's saying no emails. It's saying the council notes that not all of our social housing associations have an email address specifically for elected members, and requests that we go on to establish meetings. You are specifically saying on there that you do not want a dedicated email contact with housing association. That is what that amendment says, and that is why I cannot support that amendment, because in purely efficiency terms of communication and getting things done, it is absurd to go to the level of having a meeting when you haven't even been able to register an issue properly by email. So that's why I can't support the amendment. A hybrid would have been nice, but as it stands, that amendment is nonsensical, and therefore I cannot support it.
Councillor Peter Malloy, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Peter Malloy, Spennymoor Division. We're hearing today that there's very much support for both motions. As a newly elected councillor, I understand where Councillor Quinn's coming from, because I have other housing associations, and when I've went on their websites, I've gone straight to the contact us page, and that probably goes to somewhere in London as well. You know, I understand where the more senior colleagues have been here, elected for some years, and built up that relationships, and have got the contacts, and that's all important as well. And as a newly elected, we do need to build them up ourselves, especially if we're an independent and we haven't got a big group of other councillors, same political affiliations, that can help us out. So I'd like to, originally I was going to say what I'm going to say, and Councillor Kay just like stole me thunder, and we're on the same page here. I'd like to know where we stand legally on amending the amendment. So, like, I was a bit disappointed that Councillor Shaw didn't combine the two, but he's probably got his reasons for that. And I do believe that having that email address there is vital, especially for newly elected members. So I'd like to know where it stands, if I could put forward amend the amendment. Thank you.
As I advised when I explained the procedure at the start of motions, only one amendment can be dealt with at a time. So we'd have to vote on this and then there to be a further amendment moved. We have 3 minutes left in the time allowed for this motion. So I've just advised the Chair that we actually need to move to a vote on this once Councillor Quinn has had right of reply. So that is how you would do it, but I don't think time will permit that today.
Councillor Mark Wilkes wishes to speak.
Well, Charlie, it's not often we agree, mate. I'll sit down and let us get on with the vote.
Councillor Amanda Hopgood.
Yeah, I would echo what Mark said. I totally agree with what Councillor Kay said. This could be sorted with merging the two together, but this amendment is factually incorrect because you can't re-establish something that already exists. And it does exist in Believe Housing. Anyone who's got Believe Housing, we get invited to quarterly meetings. And this is trying to crack a nut with, well, I'm beyond speechless on this one.
Councillor Paul Sexton, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. That's 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back. We're there, and I respect Councillor Shaw's saying no to the amendment, but to me it's semantics, and I would request we just go to a vote and get this through, whichever comes out as the result. Got better things to do.
Okay, thank you. We're going to draw this to the end and ask Councillor Quinn. He has the right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you to Councillor Kay for the kind words. In response to Councillor Marshall, I believe in simplicity at its finest, and like many councillors, I am new to this, and this is my first motion. Sorry if it's not up to the standards of a career politician. I also know that members from my ward have also had issues with contacting Livin. I do agree, I do have a good relationship with Livin. Recently had a site visit with officers from Livin, and I've organised walkabout which Livin attend. That's organised, not invited to. Chair, this amendment has nothing to do with councillors contacting social housing. I don't want to go to a cabinet member who in turn has to go to them. This negates the motion in my opinion. Meetings are great, but it doesn't help the issues which happen in between meetings. It's about fast, direct access to housing associations. And like I stated, there are housing associations that rang me this morning offering support and agreement. In reference to the queue jumping, I'm not after jumping the queue, just simply reducing the queue. To those who agree that an email address is needed, then simply look at the motion. It completely takes that out. I know that Cabinet Member for Assets, James Wollaston, is already doing what this amendment states. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We're going to the vote. Thank you.
Chair, I requested a named vote when I spoke.
Did we get 10? So, just to clarify, we are voting on the amendment as moved by Councillor Shaw. It's 1 in favour, 2 against, 3 to abstain. Correcting the right button will change your vote. And we've had a valid request for a name vote, so how you vote will appear in the minutes. Can members just double check that their vote is registered, and if not, raise their hands, please.
Vote is closed. So will I say order, please. So do I say this is on the amendment?
No, just, well, I need to know what you
For 53, against 53, abstentions 1. As chair, I have a casting vote. I am against the amendment. Thank you. The amendment has fallen. We have no time to debate the true original motion further. Councillor Quinn, do you wish to reply before we vote on the substantive motion?
No, Chair, let's get home.
Ten.
Councillor Malloy.
Thank you. As I said when I spoke, I wanted to put an amendment in, and you said if this amendment failed, that's when I could put the other amendment forward. Now we're going straight to the...
But we're out of time. That's why we're going straight, as it's just the chair explained, we were out of time to debate the original motion, so we're going straight to the vote because we've hit the time for the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
She never explained that.
Yes, Councillor Tinsley.
Remember that explanation?
Point of order, we were out of time before the previous vote took place.
We follow the procedure on expiry of the time.
Councillor Shaw.
Chair, if it would be facilitate the good business of the council, I'm more than happy to move this to the next meeting.
You have to dispose of business that started in the meeting. It's extant.
Councillor McGaughan.
Sorry, Chair. Just a brief point of order. Can I just clarify, did anybody declare any interest when we asked at the start of this meeting? Because I am aware of at least one member working for a housing association. Surely they should have declared an interest and excused themselves from this vote. Or am I wrong? I'm quite happy to be pointed out wrong, ladies and gents. I'm just trying to get some clarity.
Okay, Councillor, I'll give it to Helen.
There were no declarations of interest made, although on the basis that this is about how we communicate with housing providers, I think it's unlikely that a disclosable pecuniary interest would be engaged. And I think it's too remote for it to be another relevant interest.
Councillor Hunt.
Chair, if I could just make a suggestion so the meeting can end. If we go to the vote on the motion that stands, and then if another motion needs to be put in about the meetings, which we all agree would be a good idea, even though some of us are having them anyway. My next one's on the 23rd of November, with Believe. If I think that would be the way to go forward with this.
Thank you. As I had already started, I'm going for the vote on the motion now. So we're open for voting.
Point of order, Chair. Could I please ask members to be mindful of the fact this is still a meeting that's going on and to either sit down or leave?
Councillors, please. Could you please take your seats or leave? Thank you. Well, yes, you can leave. That's what I've just said. You can leave. Every member within the chamber has voted, so we are closing the vote. Order, please. Order, please. Thank you. 456 against 48, abstentions 2. The motion is carried. The other two motions on the agenda will be deferred to the next meeting. We will now move to item 12. No questions have been received for today's meeting. So that concludes today's business. Before the meeting finishes, I would like to thank everyone for taking part and for those members of the public and the media who have watched this meeting. Thank you for your attendance, and can I point out that we have a teddy outside that was given to the Chairman's charity by Mr Colleen of Spennymoor Showground, and so he's out there to be named at £1 a name if anybody would like to give to the charity for the children, please. And can you please wait in the chamber whilst I depart? Thank you.